Okay, we've got a vote on, but we're going to be able to get in both of our senators. Have a long interest in housing, Senator Warner, and then it's so appropriate that Senator Cantwell wrap it up, given her leadership all these years. Senator Warner.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and I do think my friend, the chairman of the Banking Committee, of which I'm on, that was a gratuitous plug for you in terms of the senior Senator Morgan. And I want to thank both of you and Senator Cantwell. This is an area where we all have approaches, and this hearing's so important. I'm going to skip the part about the same kind of gaps that all of us have indicated. I want to indicate, I know Senator Cantwell's been great on low-income housing tax credit, the home investment tax credit, new market tax credit. I want to very quickly get to two items. One, something that Senator Brown actually worked with me on when we thought more of the president's agenda would get through, something I thought was very creative and worked closely with the civil rights community, which was something called the LIFT Act, which would have created for first-generation, first-time home buyers, which unfortunately in this country are still by default 60% people of color, if they could qualify for a traditional 30-year mortgage, we would provide literally a 20-year mortgage so that it would be the wealth accumulation at twice the rate, because I think racial wealth gap in this country is an extraordinarily challenging issue, and unfortunately home ownership is a huge component part of that. And I do hope that program, the LIFT Act, combined with my support as well for down payment assistance, is a good 1-2 combination. What I want to take my time, and I'm going to get to Mr. Roberts, I'm going to start with you, and if anybody else wants to weigh in as well. Another area that I've been working on, the chairman's been very supportive as well as the ranking member, is additional support for CDFIs and MDIs, community development financial institutions. MDIs, we don't have nearly enough anymore. Minority depository institutions, we were able to get $12 billion, $3 billion in grants, $9 billion in Tier 1 equity into those institutions. Really, I think, interesting initiative, but it's still not going to be enough. So in a bipartisan way, we've recently put together a CDFI tax credit that would give a tax credit to those private sector entities, and I think in terms of many of the companies who said in the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd wanted to do something on racial equity, and we've done a pretty crummy job of making sure they actually put their money where their promises were. But this would say, if you put in long-term, more than 10-year patient money, we're going to give you a tax credit. We'll give you a slightly larger one at 20 years. I think this is again, no single silver bullet, but a very effective tool to take this, what has historically been a relatively narrow niche of the financial sector, the CDFIs, and try to expand their capacity. Mr. Roberts, since you were kind enough to work with my office on putting this CDFI tax credit together, I'd love to get your comments and suggestions on why you think it's a good idea.
We're tremendously excited by this proposal, Senator Warner, and I want to thank you as well as Senators Wicker and Hyde-Smith for all your leadership on this and for your...
And got to give Chris Van Hollen credit, too. He's part of the group.
Senator Van Hollen, my senator and neighbor. This could make a huge difference. CDFIs do the hardest work in community development finance. They are designed to fill the gaps that other private sector financial services providers cannot do on their own, but they are great in partnership together. And what your tax credit proposal would do would be to build those partnerships between capital providers and the CDFIs that are on the ground to do it. The CDFIs need long-term capital because community development requires it. It's the hardest kind of capital to get, but it has to be available at a cost that makes sense. And your tax credit would lower the cost of that capital to enable CDFIs to really greatly expand their impact.
Well, I appreciate the work, and hopefully we can move on this. And I'll lose my last 55 seconds before I yield to Senator Cantwell, is to also make a slight pitch to the committee members and others on another small initiative in this space, Section 113 reform, that would take the Regal Act of '94 and basically with a very small amount of money, literally in the millions, start experimenting on whether we could actually securitize some of the CDFI debt, which again would be another tool to make sure we spread this capacity more. in the spirit of Senator Bennett, I will actually, as opposed, since he yielded back when he was already in the red, I'll yield back while I'm still in the yellow. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I thank my colleague, and I have